We're going to the book of Ruth tonight. Ruth chapter 3. Ruth chapter 3. If you're a Bible reader at all, or you've been in church a while, then you've stumbled upon this story. You've heard it preached. You've heard it told over and over, probably again. And a very unique story. The Lord put it in there for a reason. There's a lot of types and shadows in the book of Ruth, meaning that the actual story that's being told mimics, if you would, the darling Son of God and how he treats us. And it's a love story. It's a beautiful love story that's being told here. Unique love story because it's a Jewish thing. And a lot of times you won't get it and understand it because it's a Jewish custom, but it's a beautiful story. And the book of Ruth is, when you read it, I guess it's largely focuses on that relationship. Largely, the large portion of it focuses on the relationship between a lady named Ruth and a man named Boaz. And Ruth was a poor woman. And she was from a town called Moab, and you've heard preachers say she was a Moabitist woman. She was from Moab, simply what it means. And Boaz, on the other end, was a wealthy landowner, farmer into farming and harvesting, and probably a wealthy man in some sense. And these two ended up falling in love. Ruth had a husband that died and left her widowed. And then Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, also lost a husband. And it just left those two, Ruth and Naomi, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. My wife has always said that my mother was her Naomi. She even has that written in her Bible, that Becky Partain was my Naomi. Not saying that she's Ruth, but she was saying my mother was like that. So you got these two ladies whose both their husbands have died, and that's a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. And it's some of the poorest, darkest days of their life. They've probably not seen any worse than what they're seeing. And they make their way to the town where Boaz was. And to eat, they had to, I'm trying to get all this big story in one. To eat, they had to glean from his field. Now remember, he was a farmer. And it's hard to imagine how they would glean then, but let's bring it up to 21st century. The tractor goes by and harvests the corn, and what's left on the ground, the servants were able to come in, the poor people were able to come in and just pick up what was left off the ground, which is something that the animals would do. But nevertheless, they used that corn, they used that harvest to live on. And Boaz took the corn and either sold it or stored it for winter or whatever he might do with it and made money. But the poor people, this is what Naomi and Ruth would do. They would go to the edge of these long tracts of land, and when they would come by to harvest, they'd use servants to harvest, and they'd come by and harvest, and some of that corn or whatever they were harvesting would fall upon the ground, and Ruth and Naomi would actually harvest it to eat. But Boaz picked up on this situation. He realized that this older woman and this pretty woman was coming to the field and was just gathering the scraps, if you would, from the rich man's table. And when he found out about it, he gave them demand. He said, now when you get over there close to where they live, he uses the terms, the King James uses the term handfuls of purpose. In other words, leave some on purpose. Skip a row. Accidentally spill some. I know that's not what it says. I'm just giving you some ideas. And let's leave them some on purpose, because I've kind of got an eye for this girl, and I like her. And it just seems like that would be easy because, of course, her husband was dead. But I want you to think about this. You have beautiful Ruth here, and he falls in love with her. But it's a bad situation, and the situation is kind of strange because Boaz is actually kin. Here's where it gets weird. He's actually kin to her in a way. And when somebody's husband died, it was that next to kin's obligation as a Jew to take her into wife, and she stayed in that household that her brother or uncle or whatever was part of. And Boaz wanted to be with Ruth and wanted to take her in, but there was one problem. The problem was there was somebody closer to kin than he was. He was second cousin, there was a first cousin. I know that sounds horrible. I told you it was Jewish custom before we started. And that was the problem. And he did go to this first cousin and say, hey, look, Ruth is here. She's single. Her husband died. Do you want to marry her? And he said, no, I don't. It'll cause confusion in my family. In other words, his wife told him no. But that's at least what he said. No, it'll cause trouble in my family. And it releases Boaz to go take his bride. So it's a real beautiful, it's a love story that Hallmark cannot touch. It really is. It's advice that, what I want to focus on tonight is the advice while Ruth is waiting for her Boaz. She's waiting for him. She loves him, he loves her, but there's something in the way. And it's this near kinsman redeemer. He had to get that out of the way. And while Ruth is waiting on her Boaz, there was some advice given from her mother-in-law that I think we can glean from tonight on a Wednesday night among these people. Ruth 3:18. Then said she, Naomi, the mother-in-law, watch this advice to Ruth. Sit still until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be at rest, the man's Boaz, until he have finished the thing this day. The advice that's given from Naomi to Ruth. Sit still, my daughter, until you know. Sit still. Now listen, I'm talking to daddies tonight using this story. Daddy, sit still until you know. I'm talking to mamas tonight that are anticipating wanting to do something quickly. I say to you mamas, sit still until you know. I know all of our young people's out of here tonight, but to our younger married, a lot of times you want to jump into something in your young married life and maybe make a financial commitment or make a different kind of commitment in your young marriage. And the best advice I can give you is right there on the screen. You've got to sit still until you know. The biggest danger with people that marry young is sometimes they dive in head first financially to something they can't even afford. And then their entire life, their entire month is spent not enjoying life, but paying the man. And you work from sun up to sundown all month long just to pay somebody else and barely have enough money left over to grab a hamburger because you probably bit off more than you really could chew. I try to tell all my people, all my young marrieds, I've tried to tell my kids, don't jump out financially yet. Just wade your feet in the water. Or it's great advice for parents to give their children. Just sit still until you know. Sit still until you know. Just great, simple advice. Sit still until Boaz looks your way. Sit still until Boaz works some things out. Just be still until God works some things out. You see, when someone died in that family, that was that Jewish custom, and this is the weird part, and I told you this, the next of kin was to take him to wife. And he went to the guy said, no, it'll cause problems in my family. But Boaz was the next of kin, gets Ruth, and he's offered Ruth, and great love story is told. But when we read 3:18, in the middle of the story is this beautiful phrase that Naomi gives Ruth: sit still until you know. Listen to me, Christian, daddy, mama, listen. One of the hardest things you'll ever do as a Christian in a mad, confusing world is to sit still until you know. Now, I'm talking to somebody tonight. When I contemplated people canceling services, I even contemplated it myself. I talked to the deacons, and we kind of realized it wasn't coming into later. And I thought, well, maybe this one's for Sunday night, or maybe this is for Sunday morning. But I'm convinced that the people that need to hear it are here. I'm convinced that the people that need to hear it are watching it on YouTube. I'm convinced that you are the chosen select ones to hear this message at this time in your life. And the message tonight is sit still until you know. Until Boaz comes knocking on your door, until God comes knocking on your door and reveals some things to you. Just sit still. Now, don't confuse sitting still with laziness. That's a big difference. Or slothfulness. That's not what we're talking about. It's not an excuse on the screen here. This is not an excuse to become complacent in your Christianity. By no means. Or procrastinate. But rather, sit still and let God take care of the matter that you're in right now, and you're trying to put your hands on it. Be still about it. Be still about it. Your hands, let me preach to myself a minute. Carl's hands involved in the situation will only mess things up. And I got a feeling yours will too. I have got myself in more complicated junk by just getting involved in something that I don't need to be involved in. I do it all the time. My wife tries to remind me of it before I jump in, but I jump in anyways. And I don't know why Carl's like that, but Carl's like that. And I'm preaching to him tonight. Carl, keep your hands out of it. You're going to mess things up. Your thoughts that you have will only confuse things when God's trying to plan things out. Your mouth, that tongue in there, that mouth, it'll only derail the situation when you get involved. Sit still until you know. Great advice from a mother-in-law to a daughter-in-law, and great advice from a pastor tonight to a group of people on Wednesday night. Be still until you know. This phrase, sit still, it comes from a Hebrew word that's pronounced yashab. That's how they would say sit still in Hebrew, yashab. And it literally means that. Sit still, isn't it funny that we're talking about a marriage that's fixing to take place, but yet the word sit still, Ruth, until you know the matter, means settle down and marry, Ruth. Now wait a minute. She can't marry Boaz right now. He's trying to work all this out. What in the world could Naomi be saying? Here's what I believe is going on. I believe the advice here and the definition here is teaching us something as Christians. Marry God before you marry Boaz. fall in love with God before you fall in love with Boaz. I know you love him. I know he's fine. I know he parts his hair just perfect. And I know he's got that perfect body and them abs and whatever a man has. And he's tanned just perfectly. And when he smiles, he's got them fake teeth that everybody has on commercials. I mean, I look at mine and I go, man, mine ain't as white as them people on TV. And I'll scrub mine till they bleed. Or go get some $25 scrub. I've even tried the light. I've even put the light on there and look like somebody from outer space trying weird stuff. Most of them suckers on there that advertise that stuff's got fake teeth anyways. Them veneers, what do they call them, veneers? Got them all stuck up in there. That's why they're so white. Anyways, I had a rant. I'm coming back though. Marry God before you marry Boaz. I think I can hear the flavor of that when Naomi's trying to give advice to Ruth. Don't you run out and marry him. You fall in love with God and your Boaz will come. And I say this respectfully. Make love to God before you make love to Boaz. And I could take you to a scripture that literally means that, where it means to make love. And there's nothing wrong with that term. I believe that's the advice that's being given here. And this advice that is given to love God before you love your Boaz, it actually is a good formula for a long marriage. If you'll fall in love with God more than you love your wife, and if you women would fall in love with God more than you love your husband, you'd have a good marriage. God has to be number one, loving God more than the husband and loving God more than the wife. Sit still until you know. Until you know. Until you see things clearly. Sit still. How many times has Carl Partain made decisions too fast and messed things up? Went ahead of God. Just went right ahead of him. I mean, I pushed him to the side and walked right in front of him and messed things up. I ran my mouth before God was able to do the work. Or I took a side and didn't know the whole story of the matter. You know, that happens real bad in the church. I'm not talking to you directly. I'm talking to you indirectly, but I'm talking about the church in general, the churches that I've come in contact with over the years. That's one of the worst things you'll ever do is take a side of a story when you don't know the other half of the story. And people do that, especially when it comes to family, or best friends, or that's my buddy, we go out to eat together, and they can just fill you full of all kind of information. You'll just be mad at the person they're talking about and don't even know the other side of the person's story. I try not to do that. I got confidence in Charlie. Now, Charlie could tell me something. He could say, better watch out, old Scott. He said the next time you've seen him, he's going to beat you up. Now, if Charlie said that, you just almost have to believe it. I mean, I would. If Charlie told me you're going to die tomorrow, I think I'd go call Hope and go ahead and pick me out a casket. And that's how much confidence I trust him with anything I got. I really would. But you got to find out the other side of the story. And we're bad about just sucking into that one side when sometimes when you see the other side, it may paint a different picture. Well, there's that. Sit still until you see things clearly. God help me to sit still and stand as what's that group? Sonia Isaacs and them. Isaacs, yeah. Stand still. Let God move. That's right out of the Bible. Sit still until you know. I know it's hard to do. I'm not up here trying to claim to be a professional at being still and waiting on God. But we got to learn to wait on Him. Watch Psalms 27:14. Wait on the Lord. And while you're doing it, be of good cheer. And He shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. It's not just Naomi's advice to Ruth. This is throughout our Bible about waiting on God. Watch Lamentations 3. It says, the Lord is good unto them that wait for Him, to the soul that seeketh Him. Psalms 37:7, you remember this. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his ways, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. You wait patiently for the Lord. And then that famous verse in Isaiah 40, y'all remember this. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Wait. Be still. Sit still until you know the matter. How can I have confidence in this, preacher? I hear what you're telling me tonight on Wednesday night, but how can I have confidence in this? How can I have the patience to endure this waiting thing and just sitting still? Well, this text verse tells us, watch this. Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. These next three words. For the man. That's Boaz. For the man. Boaz, I promise you, if you'll sit still, Boaz will not rest until he finishes this thing and has you in his arms. If you'll just be still, daughter. Boaz has got it all figured out. You see, Ruth is not sitting still because she has confidence in herself. Ruth is sitting still because she has confidence in her Boaz. That would preach for another 5 minutes, but I'm going to save you that. You're sitting still not because you have confidence in yourself. We don't. But we sit still because we have confidence in God. That's why we sit still. She's not sitting still because she has an amazing character. She's sitting still because Boaz has an amazing character. She's not sitting still because she did not procrastinate. No, she probably did procrastinate. But she's sitting still because she knew he wouldn't procrastinate. You might be still tonight and not know what to do in your situation. But you listen to this preacher. Your Boaz is very active while you're sitting still. Very active. I don't understand why things progress like they do. And I've asked God for things that didn't happen. And there's things happen in my life I didn't like, and it rubbed me the wrong way. And I felt like we were going the wrong direction with God. But because I didn't understand it, and because I was having to sit still and be still, it did not mean the Creator was not actively involved in my life. He was actively involved. He might be still, but she might be still, but he was working on her behalf. He was making, here's a Bible term, he was making intercessions for her. Now, we could go to that verse and show you how Jesus is making intercessions. And I'm trying to save you a lot of preaching here. But he's making intercessions for me and you, according to the Bible. Be still until you know, and just know that he knows what's going on in your life right now. He knows. Boaz was a man of his word. If Boaz said he was going to return, do you see the types and shadows? If Boaz said, Ruth, I'm coming back now. You be patient. I'm coming back. If Boaz said he was coming back, he's coming back. And if you're Boaz, if Jesus said he was coming back, he's doing it. He will. If Boaz told Ruth, I'll never leave you or forsake you, well, guess what? He won't. And he won't ever leave and forsake you. And he'll never, if he said, take no thought for your life, what you eat, what you drink, what you put on, take no thought for that. I'll take care of you. Then you better believe he will. If he said rest in the Lord, then you can rest. As a matter of fact, you can close your eyes. You can close those weary eyes and lay down that weary head and rest that weary mind, because he will not rest until he has finished the thing. You got a kinsman redeemer, Jesus Christ, that's working for your benefit tonight. Listen, if you don't get anything else, and if you hadn't wrote down anything else, write this down. It's easier to start than to finish. Y'all hear me? That basically works in anything you do, but especially in your Christian life. It's real easy to start, but it's tough nails to finish. I started painting my house when we lived in Cedartown, Georgia. I was gung-ho about it. I went and got all the equipment. I went and got the paint. And as long as I was on this certain side of the house, I was still on fire. And I'd rear back and I'd go, boy, it looks good. And then I started around the corner and I lost momentum. And then Angie would say, you got to finish that. That's the front of the house. So I would muster up enough courage and I finished the front. And then I went around back and I was like getting to where I don't want to paint no more. I'm fixing to hire it out. I can't do it no more. I hate painting. She said, you're going to have to finish the back. This is where people come in the back door. So I mustered enough courage and I finished that out. But the other side of the house was just between me and the neighbor. He was the only one that saw it. And you know that thing, how long, Angie? For years. For years, that side of the house did not get painted. I lost momentum. It's much easier to start something than it is to finish something in just about anything you do. But it's that case in the Christian walk with God. When you're first saved and you have that zeal that you're not going to hell and you're going to heaven and you're walking with God and everything's just wonderful and every song hits just right and the preacher's the best thing you ever heard, then all of a sudden you're here for a few years and you go around the corner of the house and you start losing momentum. You become complacent on your pew. You've got so much confidence in the preacher, you don't feel like you have to do anything anymore. You just kind of flow along. And we can get that way, especially a pastor that's been here a long time. People start becoming relaxed. I'll be honest with you. I even told the deacons, I said, when I left here Sunday morning, I felt like I had swam upstream for miles to preach the message. I did. I was so discouraged. I mean, I had studied for that, and it just seemed like everybody wasn't even woke up. Crew wasn't here, so I wasn't getting many amens. A few grunts every once in a while. I mean, it seemed like nobody was watching, nobody was listening. Some people was talking, and the deeper I got into that message, the worse it got. And I thought, well, maybe if I get the invitation, somebody will pray, and nobody came. And when I left here, I said, I was going up the mountain. I said, my Lord, Angie, what happened this morning? It's in those times. It's in those times. You've got to trust, and I'm preaching to myself a minute. Y'all just listen. You got to trust that God's doing something you don't know nothing about. You're not going to get amens all the time. You're not going to get the pats on the back. We've been living together for 14 years now. We're family. We're used to seeing each other in our pajamas, okay? Not literally, but in a sense. We're family now. We know how to have bedhead, and we know each other now. We know what each other like and what we do. We know each other. And when you become a family, you become that way. And that's fine in the family setting, but it's not fine spiritually. We've got to constantly advance toward the kingdom of God. Every Sunday that we meet, my job is to motivate you to take up a next step on the ladder, to get closer to God, to motivate a walk toward Him that you didn't have before. And when we lose that, we lose a lot. But Boaz wasn't like me. He was going to finish what he started. Finish the race. But I noticed this, and I'm going to hurry, because I'm going to try to get you out of here before these storms come. But I do want you to notice one other thing. I don't like to sit still. Well, get ready, because sometimes he makes you lay down. Are you ready? Verse 14. She lay at his feet until the morning. Now don't think that there's some kind of quirky thing going on here. It was not at all. She laid at his feet until morning. When she rose up, she tried to rise up before anyone could know her. Early. Didn't want nobody to see her leave the house and start saying, ooh. It'd be in the newspaper, right? And he said, let it not be known that a woman came unto the floor. Now, they didn't have no relationships. There ain't nothing perverted going on here. But she laid down at his feet and went to sleep. If you have a problem with sitting still, you might not like the next step where you lay down at his feet. But I'm telling you, if you'll learn to get down at his feet, there's a reward to that. She's not the only one that suggested it. It's found in the famous verse, Psalms 23. Y'all remember that? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to do what? There it is. Sometimes he'll just make you lay down. Just make you lay down. But thank God he does it in green pastures and beside some good cool water. Lay down. Rest. I've got this. Sit still. Lay down until you know. Don't make no move until you know. But in obedience and in laying down and in sitting still at his feet, there is a reward. And I want to show it to you in verse 15. Also he said, now she's laid at his feet all night. He suggested, look, don't get out of here before people start getting up, and don't say nothing to nobody. But bring the veil that thou hast upon thee and hold it. I don't have time to deal with it, but being veiled lets you know there was nothing quirky going on there. Bring the veil that you have and hold it. And when she held that veil out now, he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her, and she went into the city. Listen to this preacher, and I'm going to let you go. There's rewards in waiting on the master. There's rewards at laying down at his feet. Quit trying to figure things out and let him work it out. Be patient, be still, lay down, whatever you have to do until you know. Until Boaz makes a move. Be still. Be quiet. Sit still until you know. That's the message tonight. Sit still until you know. I'll say this. Go ahead and take me off air, Brad. I'll say this.